President Xi Jinping's high-style, high-substance state visit to the United Kingdom seems special. What's the story behind what both sides call a new golden era in Sino-UK relations? What were China and the UK's primary objectives for Xi's trip, and how does each side assess the results? What are the economic accomplishments, political accomplishments? What about areas of contention or disagreement? What about concerns of UK companies that doing business in China has become more difficult? What about human rights? One cannot help but compare President Xi's visit to the UK with his recent visit to the United States. How should we contrast the two state visits? Does China see its deepening relationship with the UK as somehow counterbalancing China's complex relationship with the US? For the UK, how vital are its increasing economic ties with China, and are there any political overtones? Moreover, what are the challenges for the UK in dealing with China, and what are potential pitfalls? Let's go with President Xi to London to get closer to China.
Reviewing the history of our country's engagement gives me the deep impression that the growth of China-UK ties is driven by mutual understanding, support, and friendship between our two peoples.
Visit and the many concrete agreements being reached as part of it are clear sign.
There are currently more than 150,000 Chinese students studying in the UK. More than 600 primary and secondary schools in this country have opened Chinese language courses, creating a boom of learning Chinese.
This will be another bridge of cooperation between two cities and more broadly between our two countries.
I think it's like we're building good relationship with the UK.
I love Xi Dada.
I'm very proud of Chinese.
Welcome to Closer to China. It's an exciting time in UK-China relations. There's so much going on in the world. Thank you for being here. Dr. Feng Zhongping, Vice President, China Institute for Contemporary International Relations. Mr. Kirk Wilson, Executive Director of the China-Britain Business Council. One thing that seems apparent, President Xi has had a remarkable traveling schedule, visiting a large number of countries, very high-profile visits, but it seems that his visit to the UK just is something special. Mm-hmm. It's just a little bit different than other countries. Is that perception correct? Zhongping, what do you think?
Normally, a Chinese leader comes from China to where the other end of the continent, Eurasia. It takes a couple of countries together, like what he did last year: France, Germany, Holland, Netherlands, and Brussels. But this time he just visited UK for 4 days. That is. I think it's a bit, special.
So, Kirk, they talk about a new golden age in UK-China relations, that the UK wants to be China's best partner in the West. Is this just kind of superficial talk that kind of exists for a couple of days and then goes back to normal, or is there something different going on?
No, I don't think it's superficial at all. I think the process started some time ago. UK-China trade has been ramping up. We've been looking at realizing that the future will be predominantly Chinese in some ways, economically at least, and we want to be a part of that. I think in finance in particular, you can see we really want to be the center of Chinese renminbi overseas business. And
Can we kind of tease apart the two sides and look at it from each country's point of view? from China's point of view and from Britain's point of view, to see what each one is trying to get out of this visit and what the results were. So let's start with China. So
Okay.
what are China's objectives going into this visit?
A couple, I think, UK is a very important market for us. It always has been the case, but today this market become more important because, for Chinese nuclear technology, for example, for Chinese investment in high-speed trades, this is completely different from 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. So this is UK as a market. It's not just UK itself. If UK can accept this kind of Chinese productions, technologies, it will have a good spillover impact on other advanced economies. So this is the one thing. I think secondly, when we look at the UK is not just one country. We think it's a part of the European Union. This is the number one trading bloc for China. Last year is more than 600 billion US dollars trade between China and the European Union. And inside this European Union, UK is the country probably most opened to Chinese productions, to Chinese investment. So some people call UK European Union is protectionist bloc or something, but UK is really driving force inside this bloc, this group.
So it's a good market in itself, and it's access to the European Union.
Exactly.
For investment and
for trade, for
showcasing China's new technology and nuclear.
Exactly, and also
the first developed country that is having a Chinese technology for nuclear power plants, right?
Exactly.
That's very significant.
Yeah. Also, I think when Xi Jinping called UK as the global comprehensive strategic partner facing for the 21st century, it's not just rhetoric. It's I think when two countries decide to call their relations as a global, it means this country is we believe it has a global influence.
Kirk, what is motivation from UK? Obviously, you're looking for investment. Is it just the money?
No, is the easy answer. Obviously investment's very important. China's looking at making outbound investments, and we're happy to be a part of that. I was very pleased to hear you say that the UK was an important market. I mean, obviously we're quite a small country, so it can't be as significant as others like the US and the European Union, as you mentioned. But nonetheless, our objectives are to, as you already said, to partner with Chinese companies in third markets in particular. So I think the nuclear deal that you mentioned, the HS2 that's been mentioned, bringing in Chinese expertise and companies that will be capable of taking that technology to third countries is very key for us, because we want the UK companies to partner with them going into those markets. It'll be a very powerful combination in the end.
President Xi Jinping said a new chapter was opened when David Cameron visited China in 2013. The UK was among the first European countries to embrace the Asian Infrastructure Bank earlier in 2015, marking the turning point in its successful initiation. And China has become the UK's fourth largest trading partner in the world. Trade of goods quadrupled from $19 billion in 2004 to $80 billion in 2014. The UK has also become the largest destination for Chinese investment in Europe. 10 years ago, China had invested $100 million in the UK. Last year, that figure had risen to an aggregate of $40 billion. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang made his first visit to the UK in 2014, when leaders reached over 30 business agreements, including in railway, energy, and finance sectors.
The UK has advanced technology. It can be married with China's vast markets, and by doing so, we will create huge energy.
During British Chancellor George Osborne's visit to Beijing in September, an agreement was reached allowing China to invest in the Hinkley Point nuclear power station in southeast England.
We've created a model where we can attract Chinese investment into civil nuclear power. So we get the power station built, we save money for the British taxpayer.
Chinese companies are able to invest in some of the infrastructure projects which in other countries would face some sort of obstacles. I think the British government, they took an open attitude towards Chinese investment, and what the two countries have been focusing on, both in terms of trade and investment and as well as in financial area, will have a greater global impact.
I think fundamentally and basically, China economy is still sound and good. For the first half of this year, the growth rate of China economy is 7%. China is still a leading country in the world in terms of the growth of its economy.
As the Chinese economy has shown such extraordinary growth, and as China has become such a major economic power in the world, obviously its currency and the internationalization of its currency is a big development for the world economy. And Britain wants to play a role in that, and I think we're the first place where there's been an overseas renminbi bond issued here in London. So I think there's big opportunities to the benefit of China as its currency becomes more internationally traded, but also to the benefit of Britain with our financial expertise and market expertise to help in this process.
In 1950, Britain was the first major Western country to recognize the People's Republic of China. This was followed quickly by the establishment of diplomatic relations at the charge d'affaires level in 1954, which then grew gradually to full ambassadorial level in 1972. The following 3 decades witnessed several ups and downs. After the smooth return of Hong Kong to China in 1997, a major obstacle was removed. In 1998, Premier Zhu Rongji and Prime Minister Tony Blair both visited each other's countries. In May 2004, Premier Wen Jiabao officially visited the UK to announce the establishment of a comprehensive strategic partnership. Addressing journalists alongside Prime Minister Blair, Wen said that mutual respect, equality, and mutual benefit would lead Sino-British relations towards a win-win situation. In taking Sino-British relations to a new level, the two countries agreed to establish an annual meeting of government leaders and foreign ministers. Meanwhile, communications between two countries were further consolidated through the Joint Economic and Trade Commission and the China-UK Forum. The years that followed have seen growing cooperation on a number of shared issues of international and bilateral concern, including strategic security, trade and investment, energy, technology, education, and environmental protection. In 2015, Britain became the first major Western country to seek membership in the China-proposed Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, and a major player in the Belt and Road Initiative. Based on the foundation of the comprehensive strategic partnership, both sides are now looking ahead to what they hope will be a golden age for Sino-UK relations.
What about issues of contention? Very little was said publicly. Was there more privately that we don't know in terms of concerns that each side would have of the other?
I just came back from UK. I was there 2 days ago. I saw actually some coverage in British press about human rights issues, and some companies, some people blame loss of jobs in steel sectors, blame for China's cheap low price of steel dumping into UK market. I think this is a country which with completely different political systems, ideologies. We cannot get rid of this difference, frictions. It's normal, but the most important things I think is we need to talk about them. I think we can talk about human rights issues, but I think China would stick to talk with mutual respect, that kind of principle. That is something China would like to do, but also other things. I think difference is always remains. So I think any kind of countries' relations cannot. We can't just focus on the cooperation to make this cooperation become the mainstream of relations.
Yeah, you mentioned two very different kinds of things. One is questions about human rights, which would come up. Another is the loss of jobs based upon certain concepts that you know, if China's steel would go away, it wouldn't necessarily bring back those jobs. Kirk, how do you see those two issues? Are those areas of concern? Did the British press deal with it? People deal with it? It wasn't talked about publicly.
No, sure.
Among the leaders.
Well, exactly right. Yeah, yes, they're big issues in the UK. Human rights in particular is a huge issue for us. It goes to the very core of how we self-identify as a people. So we would like, you know, for the values that we all share as a people to be, you know, to be shared globally, and we hope that, you know, we can coordinate with other countries to do that.
Britain's biggest export was the Magna Carta, right?
Well, exactly. It was just here recently, actually.
Right,
it came, what was it, a few weeks ago, and it was a very popular exhibit here in China, actually. I do think that trade is a great platform for encouraging all kinds of dialogues. I mean, perhaps I would say that, being from a trade organisation. But I was very pleased that although all the issues were mentioned and touched on, and they were certainly discussed in the British press, but the core focus was increasing trade and cooperation between the countries, and I think that's a very good basis on which to have the other discussion.
President Xi's visit to the UK comes, coincidentally or not, very close to his visit to the US. I was very involved in following the visit. To the UK just seems to be such a different character that I would say some of my colleagues in the US would say Britain is taking a free ride on what the US is dealing with in China. Is that a fair criticism, Kirk?
No, it's not a fair criticism. We're not taking a.
Why am I not surprised by your answer?
Yeah, I do. You know, some industries we suffer the same issues with dealing with China. I mentioned the technology companies earlier that have difficulties here, and some UK companies are in that position too. Frankly, we're not in the same position with China. Companies like Facebook and Google, Amazon even take these. We just don't have these giants who want to dominate markets in the way that they do. I think British companies generally tend to be a bit on the smaller scale. We're more happier, you know, winning parts of the big contracts, if you like, rather than the whole big contract, rather than dominating markets. So we're quite comfortable playing that position. I don't think we need to stress the difficulties in quite the same way that the US does.
So there are two aspects of this. One is the business side, to which you're addressing, and the other is the geopolitical side, which deals with some of the problems in the world. We don't have to go into them in detail, but cybersecurity, South China Sea, currency issues, human rights issues, that certainly the US has made prominent, but by not dealing with these things, at least overtly, that's the critique that Britain is taking a free ride. You really have those interests and are concerned about those things, but you don't have to make that public, and therefore can look a lot better in China's eyes.
Well, you know, the British character is a bit different to the US character anyway, actually. I think we're more comfortable doing things on a lower profile. All of the things you mentioned were raised during the meetings with President Xi Jinping. The very fact that we're having this conversation shows that, you know, people recognize that there are these issues and they do get discussed. I think it's more a question of the framing of it, the way that we, you know, communicate that during the meetings. But I think it's still pretty clear that we're concerned about those issues and we want them to.
Jinping, how would you compare President Xi's visit to the U.S. and to the UK?
I think, you know, our relations with the United States is much more complex. You know, than our relations with the UK. You know, Xi Jinping's trip to United States, I think, has many missions. You know, one of these principles, where, you know, people call it is, you know, try to avoid confrontations, conflict between two countries. This is nothing to do, you know, with between China and the UK. I think when Xi Jinping arrived in London, you know, in his 4-day trip, his major focus, his major mission is to expand common interest, to find more areas to cooperate. So this is a big difference. I don't think our relations, close relations with the UK will be, you know, use this as a counterpart, you know, to United States. I think when Xi Jinping talked about recently about the global governance systems, global governance capacity buildings. I think he's talking about something like close cooperations between major powers, between major multi-institutions. It's not just it's not this country or another together with this country against the third one. It's not this kind of thinking. That is very important, to work with other countries to make real constructive contributions in terms of global governance. If we talk about global governance, we are not talking about allies, sort of things.
The core element of this, which has been China's foreign policy for a long time, is the concept of a multipolar world. China has talked about that for a long time, and as time has gone on, the world certainly seems to be moving more in that direction. But is the play that China has with the UK a furthering of that goal?
I think if you really think about this, China would like to stay more fair, let's say, international systems, but it doesn't. How to do this? We need to have a really United Nations centered framework to serve that purpose. If we think about the United Nations institutions, China actually really thinks about relied on multi institutions. Rather than think we need to have China does not guess to have form some kind of allies.
And obviously, for a number of decades now, we've been cooperating together in the United Nations Security Council. We had landmark result this year when, with China and the UK, we managed to negotiate a peace deal in Iran. We've been working with China too on combating Ebola in Western Africa. But I think there are a number of areas in the 21st century where the UK and China can continue to develop their partnership.
As a major world power, the UK has recognized that China is growing strong and the opportunities brought by China's development to the other countries. It has also conformed to the trend of times of changing international relations.
I think this is going to be a very important moment for British-Chinese relations, which are in a very good state, something of a golden era in our relationship. Trade is growing, investment is growing, the people-to-people contact is increasing. Talk about how Britain and China can work together on some of the global issues, talking about climate change, tackling poverty, making sure that the world institutions like the United Nations are working for the benefit of the world. So I think it's a real opportunity to deepen our relationship, and I'm delighted that President Xi is spending so much time here in the United Kingdom.
Look, if we look to the future, what will be the primary challenges as China and the UK build stronger trade relations? It's not going to be perfect. And so I want to isolate what you think will be the major challenges, the major problems, so we can watch for them. Kirk?
My background in technology obviously makes me a bit biased to be concerned about that. I think there are considerable challenges in that industry that need to be overcome. We need to see a way to make sure that the leading US companies actually can operate, and then vicariously all of the other technologies that accompany those big platforms can come into China. That needs to happen at some point.
So that you're talking about on the business side, and then on cyber, obviously there is the security side where all companies could be at risk.
Yeah, absolutely. There needs to be coordination around cybersecurity. China is one of the big sources of hacking, if you like.
Well, China also claims to be one of the biggest victims.
Well, this is exactly my point. Actually, is China as an area is the source. It's absolutely not to say what is the final actor who's behind those things. It's just that the security environment in China is not as good as it could be.
All right, so that's one. What are some other challenges?
Sure. I think, as you said earlier, about this dialogue about the challenge between the US and China and how Britain fits into that. I think we need to overcome that to some extent. wouldn't want Britain to be seen as a friend of the US or a friend of China, and you know, we have to balance these things. We're just the country in the world amongst the several hundred that there are, you know, and we trade and deal with both countries.
Just trying to get along.
We're literally just trying to get along. Yeah, you know, you have your practical and pragmatic needs year to year, and they change. But yeah, literally just trying to get
Jinping, if you look to the future of China-UK relations, what should we watch out for?
If someone talk to this with, you know, trying to publicly humiliate China, you know, that would be a big problem. I think, you know, Kirk mentioned, you know, UK like to keep a low profile, you know, this is something I think China would like to accept, you know, and also, you know, criticism in other issues, sensitive issues, you know, South China Sea, for example, dispute, you know, China believe this is a issue between us, you know, and don't like others to tell us, you know, what to do. So all these kind of things, I think, yeah.
If you looked, I don't know, 20 years into the future, what is your prediction for China-UK relations? All rosy?
Yeah, all rosy and bright. I predict a lot more trade, and that's the number one thing. I predict that these issues will be resolved. I mean, I'm fundamentally quite optimistic, in particular in the cyber area. I think people will realize that our collective cybersecurity and the good of all of the, you know, companies creating all those jobs is very important, and the issues will be resolved. So I see a world where there's a much better relationship because the trade is in place and we come closer together on all of these difficult issues.
Jinping?
More travels, you know, more tourists from UK to China, from China to UK, more student exchanges, you know, agree with you, trade will be increased dramatically.
And you're talking about students and tourism, we haven't talked about that, but this is really a core of President Xi's policy called people-to-people communication, public diplomacy.
Exactly.
We saw a little bit of that in Manchester with the president, but the more that occurs, I mean, that's a core part of China's foreign policy today. Thank you very much for joining us on Closer to China.
Thank you.
President Xi Jinping's grand state visit to the UK with all the pomp and ceremony that the British do best is a mutual success. Although China and the UK may have different motivations for what they've accomplished, the UK unabashedly seeks to be China's best partner in the West, which Xi called a visionary and strategic choice. For the UK, economics and trade are the overwhelming driver. Deals announced are worth more than $60 billion. Notably, China will make landmark investments in UK nuclear power plants. UK companies seek greater access to Chinese markets and a level playing field to do business. China's objectives are more complex, involving economic matters such as access to advanced technologies for industrial reform and internationalizing its currency, and political matters such as counterbalancing the United States. The UK also has political objective as it reevaluates its relationship to Europe, and China could provide alternative economic opportunities. Challenges to China-UK relations will not disappear. Hong Kong is a special concern, and human rights, while politely de-emphasized on the visit, remain a perennial contention. Although President Xi has been extremely active in visiting many foreign countries, his state visit to the UK does seem to be something special. That's why China's relationship with the UK brings us closer to China.